Struth. According to new guidelines from Universities UK, students have to ask for consent before they kiss or initiate sexual contact, or risk being sanctioned or suspended if they don't. I'm outraged. This is the kiss of death to good old boy meets girl. Just imagine this scene from the film of One Day. Two students up in Edinburgh, those heady varsity days.
My parents' number? And their address, just in case.
Right.
Oh, Dad's got a fax machine at work.
Just a phone number's fine. Oh, thank you.
It's ridiculous. Universities are there to educate, not lay on compulsory consent seminars and be safe spaces for snowflakes. Look, I don't approve of young women or men being pressured into doing anything they don't want to do, or males aggressing females, ever. But administrative bureaucracies should butt out of students' private lives and allow female students to take responsibility for themselves. They're adults. And all this stuff around kissing and consent is creating a wedge between the sexes and a generation of bourgeois crybabies.
Bourgeois crybabies, Rachel. I love it, but I completely disagree. I don't understand your problem with this. How can it be a bad thing to not make it clear what's acceptable and unacceptable behaviour? Especially when, with this stuff, it's such a grey area. And a lot of young girls don't necessarily have the confidence to say no when they mean no. I think if boys know this is what's acceptable and this is what isn't, everyone knows where they stand, no?
Well, I think that's a very fair and rational reaction to what's happened, but I don't think you maybe have looked at the exact guidelines that the Universities UK have put out, which I just think are astonishing and rather old-fashioned.
Okay.
In relation to the unacceptable behaviour of kissing without consent, the act of forcefully kissing another on the lips is likely to be regarded as a serious disciplinary offence, whereas the act of lightly kissing another on the back of a hand is likely to be regarded as a less serious disciplinary offence.
Is this real?
This is what I'm telling you, June. Why are universities spending time and money and effort codifying these early, very gentle sexual contacts between students? Obviously, anything that's done with force is abhorrent.
Yeah.
But this is ridiculous, and we should ignore it.
So are you worried about teenage boys not finding ways to get laid? Because I can assure you, or get it on, shall I say, I can assure you, it doesn't matter what the guidelines are, that they will find a way to do it. So I don't think we need to be worried that it's going to somehow prevent young boys feeling confident enough to approach girls.
I think it actually will.
Do you think so?
I think it actually will. I think that now, in this climate, I think men, boys, young men, are so terrified that they're going to be slapped down or expelled from their place of learning that they aren't going to be normal. They're not going to be natural in the way that we saw in that clip from One Day. What about you, Greg?
Your clip from One Day, I assume you haven't seen the film.
I've read the book.
Yes, well, you know they'd already had sex, those two, long before. That's how the thing opened. And the kiss is at the end of spending the night and a day together. So I'm not sure it's exactly the most appropriate.
Story of my life. It's the story of my life.
Yeah, but yours was without the sex.
Rachel. They will always find a way. If there's an opening, they will find a way. So the way I see it is it doesn't hurt for everybody to know where they stand and clarify what's acceptable and unacceptable behaviour.
June, a very wise old judge once said to me that there is no point having laws that are unenforceable, and this is unenforceable. How are you ever actually going? And the kids will just ignore it. It makes the law a laughing stock. Just lastly, I broke down, as Rachel read that, forcefully kissing is a serious disciplinary offence. Well, presumably if they're in a relationship, they're allowed to do it, are they? This has just got holes the size of the Channel Tunnel that you can drive through.
Yeah, but I knew you were going to talk about this today, so I made a couple of phone calls back to my
kids
to university, and I said, how big an issue is this? And basically they said there's no spike in suddenly that there's more complaints about inappropriate behaviour and the rest of it. What is happening is in quite a lot of universities, I discovered, the Students' Union are actually organising seminars and organising meetings for people coming to Freshers' Week and things like that to say, look, some things are inappropriate. Now, that seems to me perfectly valid.
If it comes from the students, I
Yeah,
think it is.
I do.
But when Nick said that this is unenforceable, I don't know whether this is completely relevant, but don't forget, Julian Assange is in the Ecuadorian embassy because he failed to ask consent of a woman he'd already been to bed with, and now he's a perpetual prisoner.
We must say, of course, that he would protest his innocence.
He would protest. Yes, I haven't said what.
Michelle,
because this is a big thing in Sweden, where this has grown from something as it were superficial as asking someone permission to kiss, can then escalate in the law, and people can end up, banged up.
But isn't this, for me, so I sit there and when you say this and you read that on the screen, it sounds ridiculous, but then when you step back from it and you look at some stats around it, to me this is universities trying to cover their backsides, because when you actually look at some of these stats, something like 68% of students, university students, are saying that they've experienced sexual harassment, 17% of them are saying they've experienced unwanted kissing. So when you have those kind of stats going on, you have to do something. Doesn't matter because I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I read that and I go, what are you talking about? But as a professional institution, they have to try and somehow protect their backside. And to me, that's what that is.
Do you honestly think this would
No,
make a
I don't.
As Greg says, there's no real big sudden spike in it. And as Rachel and I seem to agree, but people are just... And you say, if they want to get it on, to use a more polite expression, the sarpong instead of your potty mouth, if they want to get it on, they'll get it on anyway.
What does seem to have happened over the years is that Freshers' Week has become more and more... debauched and an alcoholic...
Yeah, it's carnage.
Carnage, as you say. I think that's a good description, carnage. And there is, therefore, an argument for the students, the Students' Union, to say, look... Just be responsible.
Completely. And
particularly to the guy.
I agree. And also, 73% of students actually agree with this. So this isn't something that's being forced on them.
Well, hang on. What student is going to say no? Come on, if I was asked that question, I'd say, no, I think I should be able to round up to any woman and forcefully kiss. No student is going to say, yes, I want that. Then let's be silly.
All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, when it comes to cases of sexual assault, a lot of the time, women... and men, the women are not sure, they're not confident enough to truly know whether or not something has happened. A lot of the times when girls have experienced something that feels uncomfortable, they're not sure if it was actually sexual assault. And what I'm saying is if there are clear guidelines in terms of what's acceptable and unacceptable behaviour, if something happens that is within this area, we all know where we stand. So I think actually in this day and age we do need guidelines. And that is why so many women resonated with Michelle Obama's speech, because I think all women have experienced something that is a little bit uncomfortable, which is why everything that's happening with Donald Trump, women have just got behind and said, no, we're not standing for this, because we've all been there in some way, shape or form.
But the other argument that was made to me yesterday is, look, we're talking about here kids of 18, 19, 20. Yeah. Actually, you've got to start earlier than that.
Yeah,
if you're actually going to have a sort of an education saying of explaining to people what is inappropriate, you've got to do it long before they're 17, 18, 19. You've got to start younger in the schools.
But you start with parenting. Surely, if you're bringing up kids,
can't
you
always
should be
guarantee
teaching them
that,
what's
Michelle.
appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Can't always guarantee the parents are going to do the job.
Yeah, you're putting too much trust. I mean, of course you're right, but so many kids, unfortunately, don't benefit from... sometimes two parents, let alone one parent, who's got any interest.
Well, did you ever have that discussion with you got two sons, did you have that discussion with them?
No, not really, because... no, I never sat down and talked about how you need to be respectful of women, because I just hoped that they'd see me around them. So, should I have done? Maybe I should. No, I
didn't, and I don't think parents, certainly with your sons, I don't think you sit
You
down
wouldn't try and teach your... because I don't have children, but I imagine when I do my very best to bring my children up to be, boys respectful of women,
but you set,
chivalrous.
for example, you're respectful around but in my case, your ex-wife, my mum, her sister. You're always respectful around women. I think you teach by example more than, right, sit down, because today's sons, we're going to talk about why you mustn't force yourself on women. But
I think there is a difference between that and when you turn up and you get drunk. You're almost encouraged to get drunk for a week when you turn up at Freshers' Week, and I can understand why they're for the students, not the administration.
Yes.
The students should be organising and saying, look, just behave yourself.
Yeah, and let's know what's acceptable and unacceptable.
But what I find regrettable about this and sad is that universities are supposed to be a place where you go and you
experiment,
you grow up. And I think if the universities are taking this sort of not professorial role, this sort of moral high tone with students about their behaviour, it doesn't allow them to become adults in a way that I think that's what university is there for. I think what Greg said was really important, which is that if this comes from the students, it's fine. But if it's being imposed on the student body as a sort of new set of guidelines, which are, I hope we all agree, ridiculous.
I agree.
Yeah, they are.
Can I kiss the back of your hand, Nick? Thank you.
Do you know, I slightly misheard you. Kiss. I don't want to know. She said that.
Thank you so much.
Very nice. Very